and a husband to more than just Janelle. So we had a lot of places that money needed to go that weren't always Janelle's business.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today we are talking about Sister Wives, Season 19, Episode 19, which is titled, Behold, I Come Like a Thief. The first person I want to talk about is Meri, mostly to get her out of the way, because there wasn't a lot of her in this episode. The main thing with Meri is that she did a video call with Janelle, but we don't see her going to lunch with her friends or destroying any household objects in this episode. There are no front porch chit-chats with Jen. So that's it. That's all there is about Meri. Let's focus on Janelle so we can get to that video call. When the show starts out, Janelle is in North Carolina with Maddie, Caleb, and the grandkids. We find out that she is gathering documents to try to prove that the money for the payment on Coyote Pass came from a joint fund. So she is wanting to prove that it was from a family fund and they should be dividing the profit from this sale among the four of them. Now, when she is talking about this, she does bring up some regrets. She says that she was too trusting when she was with Kody, and she regrets that she did not demand that they were all listed on all of the properties. You know, she's at a point where she is done with this. She wants to be done with Coyote Pass. She is ready to move on. Janelle and Meri decide to do a video call, but before that happens, there is a confessional where Janelle talks about her relationship with Meri and that history they have. I'm not going to go into it a lot because I know if you're listening to this, you're probably already a fan of the show, and we know that they didn't get along. They have very different personalities. And to be honest with you, that's something I think they were honest about it. They admitted early on in the show that things weren't always good between them. They wrote about it in the book as well. They just have very different personalities. But I don't think that's something they were trying to hide from viewers. And Meri's honest about the fact that she's difficult to live with. And it's actually something they all agree on. Like Kody, Janelle, and Meri. No. Kody, Janelle, and Christine all say that Meri is difficult to live with. And Meri says that she's difficult to live with as well. So, I don't know. Nothing about them not getting along is surprising to me. But when it comes to Coyote Pass, they are going to put their differences aside because it just makes sense for the two of them to work together. Now, I do want to put my opinion out there, and you guys can let me know what you think. Even though they're communicating and they're agreeing that they're both getting attorneys and they're going to kind of stick together, you can tell they're still working on their own, if that makes sense. It seems like they're, specifically Meri, seems to think that Janelle is still probably looking out for herself. But I do think she realizes now that Janelle is probably the person being the most honest. There's just something there that feels like Meri is not 100% sure. It's like she still thinks they're playing on different teams or something. And I don't think that's the case. I think Janelle wants Meri to get her fair share. But I don't know if Meri is 100% there with Janelle. So let's talk about that video call. During the call, the main focus seems to be on them agreeing that they both need to get attorneys and they want to get this whole thing moving along because they want to be done with it. They also seem to agree on the fact that it's all being done in a way that is very unfair and there's no communication. The property was not divided up in a way that makes sense to them, and they admit they don't understand why it was done the way it was done. And they both agree that they just want this all resolved. There are some confessionals by each one of them that stand out, so I'm going to put those here. The first one is from Janelle.
I'm so glad Meri understands it's wise to have a lawyer because we're not family anymore.
Janelle goes a little further and says at this point, it's like they're people trying to dissolve a business that went bad. So that just shows you her mindset. Like she's at a place where she does not expect anyone to really be looking out for anyone else. And I'm sure she is specifically focusing that part on Kody and Robyn. She doesn't expect them to be worried about if she is treated fairly or if Meri is treated fairly. But I want to show you what Meri says. And there's a part of me that wonders if this was taken out of context and she was actually saying this about something else and then they put it in this part of the show. But listen to what she says.
Right now, I feel like there's the Christine and Janelle team, and then there's the Kody and Robyn team. I don't want to be on anybody's team.
There's no.
Did you hear her mention Christine? That's what makes me think that comment might have been about something else entirely, or maybe it was just related to all of their relationships and not specifically Coyote Pass, because at this point, Christine is no longer involved. So there isn't really this other team. And I still think Meri's just not 100% sure about Janelle, so she can't say it's me and Janelle looking out for ourselves. She still sees Janelle as like the other side. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. You guys can let me know if you understand down in the comments. But let's move on to Kody, because of course they're throwing in confessionals with him as well.
We didn't pay for Coyote Pass all equally. I paid for an entire lot all by myself, at least 92% of it. The rest of the property, we all chipped in.
What happens is they bring up the fact that the lots have been divided up in really weird and unfair ways. This is something every wife has mentioned before, including Robyn. It doesn't make any sense. It's not fair. Well, Kody has his own story about how it's not fair as well. He says that he paid for 92% of one of the lots. So in his mind, everyone didn't pay equally. He paid more. One of those lots should be his. That's his thinking. In previous seasons, when they would talk about dividing up the lots, we know Kody mentioned wanting one of his own. I remember the wives saying, why would Kody have his own spot? Like, why would he have his own lot? He doesn't need that. I do not remember at any point in those conversations where Kody said, I paid for one. Wouldn't that have been the perfect opportunity to bring that up? When they were saying he didn't need his own lot, why didn't he come back with, I paid for one of those myself. I want one of those to be mine. I feel like Kody Brown would have brought that up at that time if it was a fact. If you guys can remember him mentioning paying for a lot, let me know down in the comments. I remember the lot being brought up. I remember the family lot. Who should have the retention pond? Meri might stop people from getting to. I remember all those conversations. I do not recall at any point prior to this season where we heard Kody say that was paid for by me. If I am wrong, please let me know down in the comments. I just feel like if it was true, he would have been bringing this up when they were dividing up the lots. All of these conversations and confessionals are talking about equality and how people were being treated by Kody. And this leads to Meri discussing the possibility that Kody didn't have sincere motives when he was legally divorcing her. And this is something you guys were onto well before I was. I was kind of like, okay, the whole family thinks this is best. Janelle's a little concerned, which is reasonable. But at the end of the day, they all want these kids in this family. And that's what it's really about. But you guys were on it. You were all leaving comments like, no, that is not what it was about. Meri is questioning it as well. She brings it up in this episode. I'm going to put a clip here so that you guys can hear it.
Oh, did you have this plan ahead of time when we decided to do a legal divorce back in 2014? I know why I did the legal divorce, and I know where my heart was.
So you hear her questioning it, but I want you guys to really pay attention to how she words the next part of this.
I don't know where anybody else's heart was.
She didn't say Kody. She said anybody else's, which makes me think she's now questioning what Robyn's motive really was. Was that divorce for those kids, or was it so that she would be the legal wife and she was going to have that connection to Kody? I really didn't expect her to say that, so there was no way I was going to leave it out. Now, as they continue talking, they just discussed that they need to push this forward. They may need to protect themselves by having attorneys. We do get another confessional from Kody, sort of like the one we saw in the last episode, where he basically implies that he's doing them a favor, he's doing the work, they could be doing this themselves. I said it in the last video, I'm going to say it again in this one. There's no way Kody Brown would let them handle this. He would drive them crazy. He would make the whole thing an absolute nightmare. So I think it's funny. I think it's absolutely hilarious. No matter what they chose, Kody would have a problem with it. There would be an issue with every solution they had. In the last episode, Christine said when she was married to Kody and they talked about finances, you would either do what he wanted, or if you wanted something, he would talk you to death. He wouldn't let it go until eventually you gave in and did what he wanted anyway. Meri and Janelle know that about him. They were married to him long enough to know that he is not going to be okay with what they do. Let's go ahead and talk about Robyn and Kody. They head out to Coyote Pass with the kids. Kody is taking them there for the free labor. They are going to be sanding and painting picnic tables. These tables had been made by Robyn's dad. He made them back when the family was living in Vegas. I feel like we saw more of Robyn in this episode than we have the last few. She tells us about her dad. She says, he wasn't biologically my father. He was technically her stepdad, but for all intents and purposes, this was her dad. Her mom had been friends with him and his first wife. Robyn had actually called him Uncle Paul before she ever called him dad. And eventually, his first wife suggested to Robyn's mom that, there could be a marriage there. And it happened. And then Robyn started calling him dad, and he stepped up as a father figure. He would spend the weekdays with Robyn's stepmom, the other mom, the first wife, and then spend the weekends with Robyn's family. So Kody and the kids are out there. They're sanding and painting these picnic tables. It is what it is. We see Kody take his kids out and have them chop trees and do projects with him. This is something Kody likes to do. And Robyn talks about how her own dad would do that. They were always doing projects together on the weekend, and she has really fond memories of that. So they are enjoying this time together. Then later in the episode, we kind of fast forward. The picnic tables are done and dry. They are back out at Coyote Pass. They are going to be having a picnic out there. They're going to make a fire, roast some marshmallows and hot dogs, just have a good family experience, which we know is something they're trying to show us again and again this season. Kody can just be the most awesome dad with the right people, with the right wife and the right children. So here's another example of this perfect, memorable experience. But it's not going to fool us viewers because we know that's only 5 of his kids. The other kids are not there because they don't get along with him very well, or he doesn't include them or invite them. And then he also has grandkids that are never really present for any of this stuff. So we're not falling for it. I will say this though. Brienne and Aurora looked a lot more comfortable being filmed doing something instead of having awkward conversations that were probably not necessarily scripted, but kind of. I feel like some of those conversations were happening on purpose, like the one about going to church. I felt like they planned that to film it, right? And then the confessionals where they're sitting there being questioned, I think they look so scared. This seemed natural. They were able to talk to Robyn and Kody about what they wanted in relationships and how many kids they wanted to have, and they just seemed more comfortable. I hope we see them more in these kind of settings and not sitting on the sofa answering questions. Let's focus back on Kody and the fact that they are out at Coyote Pass. He's there, he's happy, he's with his favorite people, he's making amazing memories. This is just so much fun for Kody that now he doesn't know if he wants to actually sell the property. And Robyn is like, we can't afford it. We can't afford the property and have other things. So to her, this is just, it's not something they're going to do. They need to let it go, even if that's not what she really wants. But Kody is now questioning it, and he even says he would like to keep one lot, maybe the lot with that nasty retention pond. So his mind is going all over. He doesn't know if he wants to let it go, which to me explains why he's not rushing to get rid of it. He doesn't know what he wants to do, so he's just sitting and waiting until he's made up his mind. Meanwhile, Meri and Janelle are like, let's get this over with. They're ready to go. But Kody doesn't actually know what he wants to do. That's my take on this. He wants to have it sit there until he's certain or can come up with the money to keep some of it. You guys can let me know what you think. That makes sense to me. I also think it's a control move. I think he enjoys that he can drag this out for as long as he can and then say it's their fault that they didn't handle it, even though we know he wouldn't let them handle it. There's a lot there. There's a lot there to Kody, but I think some of it is him trying to hold out so he can keep some of it. Let's move on to talking about Christine. This episode starts off where the last one left off. David and Christine are taking a U-Haul to Moab. It is filled up with furniture for their new property. On the drive there, Christine realizes they are taking the same road that the Brown family drove on when they were moving from Utah and they had all of those tire issues. She says when she looks back on it, it feels like another world. When they finally arrive at the house, David goes inside and he is seeing it all for the first time. He loves it. That is not an experience she would have ever had with Kody. Kody would have had a problem with whatever she did. But David had trusted her and he thinks the property is great. Later on, Janelle also comes over to see it. When she enters the house, she opens the door without knocking. And this leads to them all discussing how they feel about people entering their house without knocking first.
I never really cared much about the knocking. There were people in our family who did.
So this leads to confessionals where they all talk about whether or not they want you to knock when you enter in their home. Christine doesn't require people knocking. That is not something she cares if people do. Janelle says she adjusted. At first, when she moved to Wyoming and people weren't knocking, she was surprised, but then she got used to it. However, Meri and Robyn are really different. Robyn says that the issue for her is that she gets startled very easily. So she prefers that people knock. Meri says that she prefers a knock. You can go ahead and open the door, but if she's like walking around without her clothes on, the knock kind of warns her that you are entering her home. I feel like this is going to be some super divisive thing. And I'm going to give a very unpopular opinion. I strongly prefer that you knock. I do not like people suddenly being there and standing in my house. I've had people do it. I don't enjoy it. It is different if I know you're coming over. Like if you call and say I'm heading over, I'm on my way, and I'm like, okay, someone's going to be here. But I've had people just open the door, and I don't like that. I don't like the feeling I have of turning around and just seeing a person there. And I've definitely had people come in and I'm wearing like an old t-shirt, I'm cleaning, and I'm like, are you kidding? I would have like grabbed a nicer sweater or something to have thrown over what I'm wearing right now. So I'm actually on team Meri and Robyn. However, I can understand that some people don't mind. The issue with this is that it's Robyn and Meri. I think this is going to be a thing where people really pick on Robyn about her wanting you to knock at her door. And to me, it's just not that big of a deal. Okay, so I'm going to keep going because this is the part of the show that probably got me the most worked up. When Janelle is there, she is talking to Christine and they start discussing how their lives have changed since they left Kody. And they talk about how they're starting their own businesses and they're so independent now. Janelle brings up that they're able to get more done now that they don't have to have meetings with everyone in the family. They're able to make decisions about their lives without discussing it to a whole group. This leads to Janelle talking about how, at the end of her marriage to Kody, the finances were very frustrating. She said in the beginning, they put all of their funds together and they would discuss how they were going to be paying things from those funds. So according to what she's saying, there was transparency in the beginning. You knew how the money was going to be spent. But by the end of this, Kody would just take money out and there was no discussing it anymore.
And in the last several years, Kody would just take out funds and I don't know what for. And the money was just being spent.
Yeah, I 100% believe that. Now, Kody doesn't even deny it. When they go to the confessional with Kody, he tries to justify what was happening. And you guys, this just doesn't cut it for me. I'm going to put the clip in here of Kody talking about the finances.
I was a father to 18 and a husband to more than just Janelle.
I just want to stop here for a second. Have you guys noticed that he keeps using the kids as an excuse? We heard it in the last episode as well. He's a father to 18, but it still doesn't work. Here's the rest of it.
So we had a lot of places that money needed to go that weren't always Janelle's business.
You know, if Kody hadn't thrown in that last part, I might have been a bit more understanding. You know, he's got 18 kids and 4 wives. There's going to be a lot of money being spent. But adding in that it wasn't Janelle's business, that's where it stopped. It was Janelle's, Christine's, Meri's, and yes, I'm going to say it, even Robyn's. And I know some of you are going to point out that Robyn didn't have a job. You're right, she didn't. But this is kind of what this family agreed to, that they would have people working and putting money in at different points. And I know, again, someone's going to say, well, has Robyn ever really worked? I don't think so. My sister wife's closet was it. But whatever. They were all doing it, you guys. Like, think whatever we want about it as viewers. There was a point where Christine wasn't working and then she did work. There was a point where I think Meri only worked part-time. They did this thing like this where some people would work and some people wouldn't at varying times. I think Janelle was the one that consistently had income, but that wasn't true for Meri and Christine. Robyn joined the family and she didn't work. Do I think it was a good idea? No, but they agreed to it. They all put their money in a fund. It was supposed to go to everyone. That's how they set it up. I wouldn't have been okay with that plan, but they did it. So in my opinion, everyone who was going to use money from that fund should have been able to have looked at the expenses, understood where the money was going, why it was being used, and who it was going to. There should have been full transparency. And it should have been something they understood. But when they talk about money, they don't know where it was going. And in my opinion, Kody is freaking out and looking for an excuse. He's saying it's not her business. Yes, it was. It was everyone's business. Everyone who needed to use the family fund or paid into the family fund, it was all of their business. Everyone. And this is just a poor excuse. And it's not working. It makes it look like he was doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing. What could have they going with that? Let's just talk about it for a second. He's saying it wasn't their business. What was going on with any one of them or any one of the children that couldn't be shared with everyone else? If they were living as one family and they were all united as one, why wouldn't they know about this stuff going on with everyone else? Right? The money in the family fund was used for properties, cars, college. What part of that is something that needs to be done in secrecy? Yeah, this was the part of the show where I was definitely the most worked up. I'm like, he is going to make a fool out of himself again. He just never stops. We're already watching these fake family moments all the time with him and Robyn. And now he's going to be angry when he talks about the finances. And he's going to use having 18 kids as an excuse. And it's just not going to work. But that is it, you guys. That is all I've got for this recap. You can let me know if I missed anything that was important or if you have any opinions about it. Yeah, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate all the support you guys give this channel. And I hope you come back so we can talk more about Sister Wives.